Your boots are soaked through with swamp water and your shoulder skin is rubbed raw from the nylon strap of a heavy ammunition can. You have been moving continuously for 42 hours. You have consumed exactly 1.5 meals ready to eat, and your brain is actively cannibalizing its own cognitive functions just to keep your legs moving. The kid marching next to you, the one you have despised for the last 11 weeks, just collapsed to his knees in the mud. The drill instructor standing 10 feet away does not scream. He does not order you to pick him up. He just stares at you in the dark, waiting to see if you will leave a man behind or if you will suppress your own exhaustion, shoulder his weapon, pick up his body weight, and drag him across the finish line yourself. Stand to welcome back to the tame room. Grab a seat. If you are newly assigned to this operational grid, let me give you the baseline briefing. I am a retired officer from the United States Special Operations Community. I spent the better part of 2 decades executing direct action, unconventional warfare, and foreign internal defense in denied territories that will never officially appear on a public map. Due to the active non-disclosure agreements locked in vaults at the Pentagon, my face remains redacted and my name is permanently off the grid. The military gave me a profound, lethal skill set, but it took its pound of flesh in return. My skeletal structure is a roadmap of titanium hardware. My joints are degraded to bone-on bone, and I carry the localized nerve damage of a long career. The Department of Veterans Affairs sends a disability check every month to offset the physical destruction, but I am not here to rattle a tin cup. I am an officer. I was raised to lead, and I firmly believe in working for my keep. This channel is built on a strictly enforced operational trade. I give you the raw, unfiltered, classified reality of modern warfare and elite tactical training. I break down the grueling psychology, the lethal physics, and the institutionalized violence that Hollywood directors and military recruiters will never expose you to. In exchange, I simply ask for your engagement. You hit the subscribe button, you smash the like button, and you drop a comment down below. That engagement feeds the YouTube algorithm. It keeps this channel airborne, and it allows me to stay fiercely independent while delivering this intelligence directly to you. If you can respect that trade, then lock and load. We have a highly exhausting, physiologically depleting movement ahead of us today. Today, we are analyzing the exact moment a civilian identity is destroyed and a military weapon is forged. We are stripping away the myths of basic training to examine the brutal mathematics of sleep deprivation, caloric deficit, and forced teamwork. We are traveling to the recruit depots of Parris Island, South Carolina, and San Diego, California, to deconstruct the ultimate final exam of the United States Marine Corps. We are going inside the Crucible. To understand the architecture of this event, you must first understand the historical problem the Marine Corps was trying to solve. In the late 1990s, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Charles Krulak, identified a dangerous shift in the civilian population. Recruits were arriving at boot camp with a highly individualized, self-centered worldview. The culture of the me generation was fundamentally incompatible with the realities of modern, decentralized warfare. On a chaotic battlefield, when communications fail, when the officers are killed, and when the mission goes completely sideways, an individualized unit will shatter. A soldier who only cares about his own survival will run. General Krulak realized that the Marine Corps could not just teach recruits how to shoot rifles and march in formation. They had to systematically dismantle the individual ego and replace it with a collective pack mentality. They needed an event so profoundly miserable, so physically exhausting, that it could not be completed alone. The Crucible was designed to force recruits to realize that their individual strength is irrelevant and that their only hope for survival is the squad. Let us analyze the tactical parameters of the event. The Crucible is a continuous 54-hour field training exercise. Over the course of those 2.5 days, the recruits will march a cumulative distance of over 45 miles carrying full combat gear, including their M16A4 service rifles, Kevlar helmets, and heavy infantry packs. But the physical distance is the easiest part of the equation. The true weapons of the Crucible are deprivation and time. During the entire 54-hour period, a recruit is issued exactly 3 meals ready-to-eat MREs. An MRE contains roughly 1,200 calories. This means the recruits are provided with approximately 3,600 calories to survive an event where their bodies will burn upwards of 15,000 to 20,000 calories. They are forced into a massive, immediate caloric deficit. Simultaneously, the recruits are subjected to severe sleep deprivation. They are allowed a maximum of 4 to 6 hours of sleep across the entire event, and that sleep is broken, shivering, and constantly interrupted by simulated enemy attacks. The physiological response to this specific combination of stressors is catastrophic. Within the first 24 hours, the body exhausts all stored glycogen in the liver and muscles. The muscles begin to cramp and seize. The body then transitions into a catabolic state, breaking down its own muscle tissue to convert proteins into usable glucose for the brain. When the brain is starved of glucose, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for logical decision-making, emotional regulation, and complex problem-solving, begins to shut down. The recruit regresses to the primitive amygdala. They become highly irritable. Their pain tolerance drops. They experience auditory and visual hallucinations. The shadows in the woods turn into enemy soldiers. The wind sounds like people calling their names. This is the exact biological state the Marine Corps wants them in. The cadre do not want to evaluate a recruit when he is well-fed, well-rested, and comfortable. Anyone can be a good teammate on a full stomach. The Marine Corps needs to know who you are when your biological armor is completely stripped away. They need to know if the hunger makes you a thief, if the exhaustion makes you a coward, or if the pain makes you a leader. The most jarring psychological shift of the Crucible occurs in the very first hour. For the previous 11 weeks of boot camp, the recruits have been micromanaged by their drill instructors to a degree that defies civilian comprehension. Every second of their existence was dictated by a scream. The drill instructors told them exactly when to eat, how to chew, when to sleep, and how to lace their boots. The recruits were completely stripped of their autonomy. But when the Crucible begins, the screaming stops. The drill instructors step back. They put on their protective gear, they pull out their evaluation clipboards, and they go completely silent. They transition from micromanagers to silent observers. This silence is deeply unsettling for the recruits. They are suddenly thrust into a vacuum of leadership. A 19-year-old recruit is appointed as the squad leader, handed a topographical map, a lensatic compass, and a mission objective, and told to navigate his squad through dense, hostile terrain. If the squad makes a navigational error and walks into a swamp, the drill instructor does not correct them. He follows them into the swamp, writes a negative evaluation on his clipboard, and watches them suffer the consequences of their failure. The Crucible is broken down into a series of highly complex day and night evolutions. These are known as the core value stations, and each one is named after a Marine Corps hero, typically a Medal of Honor recipient who died executing the exact type of teamwork the station is designed to test. One of the most infamous stations is the ammunition resupply. The squad is tasked with moving heavy wooden crates, simulating thousands of rounds of machine gun ammunition, across a grueling obstacle course to resupply a simulated pin-down unit. The geometric design of the obstacles ensures that a single recruit, no matter how physically strong he is, cannot complete the task alone. You cannot lift a 200-pound crate over an 8-foot wooden wall by yourself. You cannot drag a simulated casualty, a heavy dummy dressed in full combat gear, under a 50-yard low-wire entanglement alone. The squad must communicate. They must synchronize their movements. They must distribute the weight. I have watched the psychology of these specific events unfold. You will have a squad of recruits who have been quietly bickering and competing with each other in the squad bay for weeks. Under the extreme physical stress of the ammunition resupply, the friction points violently ignite. The sleep deprivation strips away their patience. Someone drops a heavy crate on a teammate's foot. Someone pulls a rope too early. The frustration boils over into aggressive confrontations. Recruits start yelling at each other, blaming each other for the failure. The silent drill instructor watches this happen with absolute indifference. He is waiting to see the breaking point. He is waiting to see if the squad will completely implode and fail the mission, or if someone in the ranks will step up, suppress their own exhausted ego, and take control of the chaos. The Crucible teaches you that tactical leadership is not about wearing a rank on your collar. It is about stepping into the vacuum of confusion and providing extreme clarity when everyone else is panicking. When the sun goes down, the misery compounds. If you are training at Parris Island, the South Carolina swamps come alive. The humidity is suffocating and the sand fleas swarm the recruits, biting them relentlessly while they are forced to remain perfectly still in defensive perimeters. If you are training at Camp Pendleton in California, the freezing Pacific air cuts right through their sweat-soaked utility uniforms, dropping their core temperatures. They conduct night infiltration courses. The squad must low-crawl through hundreds of yards of thick, freezing mud under simulated heavy machine gun fire. Artillery simulators detonate in the dark, throwing dirt and concussive shockwaves over the recruits. Parachute flares illuminate the night sky with a harsh, flickering light, casting long, disorienting shadows that trick their sleep-deprived brains. The mud packs into the mechanisms of their M16 rifles. They have to constantly clean and clear their weapons in the dark, relying purely on the tactile muscle memory they built over the last 2 months. After the night movements, they establish a bivouac site. But rest is an illusion. They must maintain strict security perimeters. This means that while half the squad sleeps on the hard, freezing ground using their Kevlar helmets as pillows, the other half must stay awake on guard duty, staring into the pitch-black woods, scanning for an instructor simulating an enemy probe. You get perhaps 2 hours of shivering, interrupted sleep before a whistle blows, and you are ordered back to your feet, groaning as the lactic acid locks your muscles into place. Another critical phase of the Crucible is the Leadership Reaction Course, or LRC. This is a pure test of cognitive function under extreme physical duress. The squad is placed in front of a complex physical puzzle. For example, they must cross a simulated blown-out bridge over a ravine. The ravine is marked with red paint, representing a bottomless drop or a lethal minefield. If a recruit or a piece of equipment touches the red paint, they suffer a severe penalty. To cross the gap, the squad is given exactly 2 wooden planks that are too short to reach the other side, a length of frayed rope, and an empty metal 50-gallon drum. If you give this puzzle to a group of rested, well-fed college students, they will solve it in 5 minutes. But when you give it to a squad of recruits who have been awake for 40 hours and are operating on a severe caloric deficit, it becomes an agonizing psychological ordeal. Their brains cannot process the spatial geometry. They argue over the physics of leverage. They try to balance the boards on the barrel, the board slips, a recruit falls into the red zone, and the silent drill instructor clicks his stopwatch and orders the entire squad back to the start line to begin again. The frustration is palpable. It is a brilliant, malicious demonstration of how exhaustion destroys combat effectiveness. It teaches the recruits that brute strength is useless if you cannot maintain the discipline to think clearly under fire. By hour 48, the recruits are operating entirely on raw willpower. The pain in their feet is blinding. The heavy infantry boots have caused massive friction blisters to form, rupture, and bleed. The nylon straps of their packs have rubbed the skin raw off their collarbones. Every single step requires a conscious, localized effort of command from the brain to the leg. This brings them to the final, most legendary challenge of the Crucible, the Reaper. At Camp Pendleton, the Reaper is a massive, unforgiving mountain peak that dominates the training area. The final forced march begins at 0200 hours, 2 o'clock in the morning on the third day of the evolution. The ascent up the Reaper is a vertical, soul-crushing grind. The trail is incredibly steep, covered in loose, jagged rocks and deep erosion ruts. Gravity constantly, aggressively pulls the heavy packs backward. The cold night air burns in their lungs. This mountain is the ultimate filter, and it is here that the pack mentality finally, permanently solidifies. You will see the exact dynamic that the Marine Corps has been trying to build for 12 weeks. You will see recruits who are physically gifted, the natural athletes, refuse to march ahead of the pack. Instead, they fall back. You will see a small 140-pound recruit carrying 2 heavy rifles because his massive, heavily muscled teammate has completely cramped up, his legs locking straight, unable to carry his own weapon. You will see recruits physically pushing each other up the steepest inclines. As they link arms, they grab the webbing of the pack in front of them and drag the stragglers forward. The individual ego has been completely obliterated. The recruit no longer cares about his own pain. He no longer cares about his own hunger. He only cares about one single objective, getting the squad to the top of the mountain. This is not a manufactured training scenario. This is the exact psychological dynamic that saves lives in combat. When a Marine is pinned down in the urban meat grinder of Fallujah or freezing in the mountains of Afghanistan, he does not fight for the geopolitical strategies of the politicians in Washington. He does not fight for a flag. He fights for the Marine on his left and the Marine on his right. The Crucible installs that software directly into their central nervous system. It proves to them, through undeniable shared physical suffering, that they are infinitely stronger, infinitely more lethal as a cohesive unit than they could ever be as isolated individuals. They reach the summit of the Reaper just as the sun begins to breach the horizon over the Pacific Ocean. The physical relief of standing on flat ground is overwhelming, but the emotional impact of what happens next is devastating. The squad forms up in ranks. They are a wretched sight. They are covered in layers of dried mud, sweat, and smeared camouflage face paint. They are shivering in the dawn air. Their eyes are sunken and they lean heavily on their rifles. The drill instructors walk down the line. The same men who have tormented, degraded, and pushed these recruits to the absolute edge of their sanity for the past 3 months stop in front of each person. The drill instructor reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small black metal emblem. The eagles, globes, and anchors. The drill instructor presses the sharp metal emblem into the palm of the recruit's hand. He looks the exhausted kid directly in the eye and his voice changes. The scream is gone. The hostility is gone. He speaks with quiet, profound respect and he says 2 words. A congratulations, Marines. It is the first time in 12 weeks that they are not referred to as a recruit, a maggot, or a piece of trash. They are addressed by their earned title. I have seen the hardest, most stoic young men completely break down in tears during this specific ceremony. The emotional release of achieving something that cost you every ounce of your physical and mental reserve is an earthquake in the human soul. They cry because they realize they survived. They cry because they look at the men and women standing next to them and realize they belong to a brotherhood that cannot be bought with money, but only paid for in blood, sweat, and absolute dedication. They have earned their place in the ancient, violent lineage of the United States Marine Corps. So why do we take the time to deeply analyze this specific 54-hour window of institutionalized suffering? Because the architecture of the Crucible is the exact blueprint required to survive the prolonged crises of civilian existence. The military understands that combat is not a sprint. It is a grueling, miserable marathon. It is weeks of bad food, zero sleep, terrible weather, and chronic, exhausting fear. If you only train your troops for a 2-hour battle, they will completely collapse on day 3 of a combat deployment. The Crucible inoculates the human mind against the shock of prolonged misery. You watching this debrief will likely never have to march 45 miles up a California mountain with a heavy pack on 3 hours of sleep, but you are going to face your own 54-hour grinds. Life is going to put you in the crucible. You will face periods in your career, in your business, or in your personal relationships where the pressure is unrelenting. You will be financially starved. You will be emotionally sleep-deprived. You will face a health crisis that drains your energy until you feel like your boots are full of blood and you cannot take another step. The lesson from the Marine Corps is this: the only way to survive the long haul is to stop looking at the summit of the mountain and start looking at the boots of the person directly in front of you. When you are in the middle of a massive life crisis, looking at the entire scope of the problem will crush you. The anxiety will paralyze you. You survive the crucible of life by breaking the 54 hours down into 5-minute increments. You do not worry about tomorrow. You just make it to the next tree. You just make it to the next obstacle. You compartmentalize the suffering, focus on the immediate task, and you keep your legs moving. Furthermore, you cannot survive a prolonged crisis entirely alone. The myth of the lone wolf is a cinematic lie sold to you by Hollywood. In reality, the lone wolf dies of starvation in the winter. The pack survives. When you are navigating the hardest moments of your life, you have to lean on your squad. And more importantly, you have to be willing to carry the rifle of the person next to you when their knees give out. The strength of your network, the resilience of your family, or the success of your business team is directly proportional to how much pain you are willing to absorb for each other. If you are only looking out for your own interests, your team will shatter the moment the pressure gets high. The title of Marine is earned at the top of that mountain, but the true test of the individual is earning that title every single day after. The same principle applies to your life. The respect of your peers, the success of your endeavors, the love of your family, these are not permanent titles that you win once and keep forever. They are rented. And the rent is due every single day. I have commanded these men in combat. I have seen the product of the Crucible operate under direct fire in hostile territory. I know the absolute, unbreakable reliability of a human being who has had their ego stripped away and replaced with an unyielding commitment to the team. This channel is my way of passing that operational mindset onto you. We have a massive archive of tactical intelligence left to declassify. In the upcoming debriefs, we are going to break down the mathematical precision of Delta Force breaching operations and the extreme physiological adaptations of Army combat divers. If this briefing altered your perspective, if it gave you a psychological framework to apply to the grueling marches in your own life, then execute your end of our operational trade. Smash that subscribe button. Leave a like on the video. It costs you absolutely $0, but it is the critical fuel that keeps this channel operational, independent, and completely clear of the censors. I want you to drop a comment down below. Tell me about the hardest, most exhausting gauntlet you have ever had to survive in your life, and tell me who was standing next to you when you finally crossed the finish line. I read every single comment. I am always evaluating the mindset of the personnel in this squad. Keep your powder dry, tighten your pack straps, keep moving forward. I will see you at the rally point. Out.